Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
And we're on.
This is it.
This is our last show.
No.
Just kidding.
Welcome back to another episode of our Barber's Brief. It's not our last episode. Mark's
No.
lying. We keep going. We're like the Energizer bunnies here for our podcasters. Going and going and going. Anyways, if you're a new listener, we use this forum to discuss things that have caught our attention over the last couple of weeks. We like to highlight a marketing moment, which we have a special surprise for you.
Yes, we do.
And of course, we end with our ad of the week. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, V. I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm
Just hot off the turkey press.
hot off the turkey press. Still digesting a lot of the fantastic food. For those that don't know, it was Canadian Thanksgiving over this last weekend. And on Monday, it was great.
And we got snow.
And we got a little snow. You know, it's just a reminder that we do still live in Canada.
Yeah, my sister and brother-in-law are like, what is happening here? Why is it so cold?
Yeah, the temperatures did drop a bit. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. What caught your attention?
Well, big story was an ad, which read like an article by Chip Wilson in the Wall Street Journal. So he wrote an article, Lululemon is in a nosedive. And it's a really interesting article. I mean, it's an ad, but it's an article where he's the founder. He basically invented Lululemon, invented technical athletic gear. According to its founder, Chip, the company's in a serious nosedive. Since January 2024, they've lost 67% of their share price. So they went from $510 a share January 2024 to now they're sitting around $167.
Wow.
So he breaks down this problem or the problem and solution in a whole bunch of things, starting with the leadership problem. So the original knowledge base walked out the door when he left, and then a whole bunch of people followed. There was a process that happened that he calls the gapization, and whereby there's a shift from long-term strategy to meeting short-term quarterly projections and about squeezing out margins, not maximizing returns. So when you prioritize finance over product, you get a lack of creative excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Second mistake was after all those people left, they brought in finance and operational CEOs who get spreadsheets but don't get product design. And then this kind of creates a flywheel effect that causes culture erosion. Lululemon is losing its control because it forgot its muse, which is the woman who drives inspiration, not just follows trends. And this isn't just bad. It completely undermines the brand's value proposition in his mind. So his correction and to fix this is to put the product and brand back to the core of the company. And then 2, get the creative leadership on board. 3, recommit to the muse, which is the female who's leading trends or leading culture. And so it's really about just restoring and refocusing on the original premise of the company, almost like going back to the origin story.
Yeah, of course.
The company doesn't need a new identity. It needs a revitalized, focused board to execute the technical vision it was founded on. So it's kind of one of those things where I found it interesting in a whole bunch of ways, and I'd love to get your take on this because we talk about ROI all the time. And so why we're expected to deliver it, but then also on the flip side, when you see companies that do the spreadsheet marketing, what happens? So what's your take on this?
I was just going to say, it's not the first time he's gone after the current leadership team, right? There was an instance, I want to say a couple of years ago as well, that he was very vocal in the direction that they were taking. And you know, you have to, and I know he comes across a little bit eccentric, but you have to appreciate where he's coming from and understanding and like he's made his own mistakes,
sure,
right, throughout his tenure at Lululemon. But at the end of the day, the brand, the way it grew with him at the helm, I think is something that we can't lose sight on. So I'm not close enough to the brand, to be honest with you, in terms of as a consumer and whatnot, nor like what it's meant to stand for. But I'm just looking at the graphic here. When you're looking at the erosion of their value over the last 5 years, like obviously something has to give.
Yeah.
Something has to give.
It's definitely, it's kind of the Nike-esque almost.
Exactly. And you don't even have the heritage of Nike.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still at that point where, you have to make sure that you're still leading, and you can't disagree with things that he's highlighting, like putting the brand back at the core, stop thinking about short-termism and, trying to make every quarter. How do you try to build for long-term? It's a lot of things that we as marketers would love to have our organization really kind of, pull back and have us focus on. But the reality is it's something has to change on there, over there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. What do you got?
Well, if your search console looks like I got punched in the face over the last couple weeks, you're not alone, man. Google just quietly removed a little parameter called num100. You can almost sense that people would tattoo this, maybe. And it's turned the whole SEO world upside down. Now, we're gonna get a little geeky here, but just stick with me.
Okay.
For years, you could add the num100 to a search console and see 100 results on one page instead of 10.
Okay.
Guess what? That's exactly how every SEO tool on the planet, think about SEMrush, think about Ahrefs, with AccuRanker is another one. That's how they were collecting a lot of collecting and ranking data. So they'd scrape those 100 results per query, nice and tidy. Bob's your uncle. But last week, well, actually not last week, it would have been 2 weeks ago, Google slammed the door on that whole function. You can't do that anymore. And at that moment, that's where the data went haywire. So impressions dropped across nearly 88% of websites, keyword counts plummeted, and average positions started shooting up. And it looked like everyone's rankings were collapsing literally overnight. But here's a subtle twist, and you'll recognize something here based off a conversation we had last week. Those impressions may never have been real in the first place. Where have you heard that before?
Totally.
Because when those so when those SEO tools scraped those results with the num100 trick, those queries were likely recorded as impressions inside of Google Search Console, artificially inflating visibility data. So when Google turned that off, what disappeared wasn't really your audience, it was your phantom data, right? So in other words, your reports look worse, but the reality is they actually may be better. So irregardless, it's still chaos. Tools are scrambling to recalibrate, SEOs are panicking. Google hasn't confirmed this was the intention of cleanup or just a oops. Either way, this feels like a bit of a poetic justice because for years we've treated dashboards as gospels of truth. Now Google's reminding us that even the data we worship may be, a little fake. So if your impressions are down this week, take a deep breath. You didn't break SEO. Google just fixed the mirror. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's funny, like the reference to Dr. Fu's podcast that we did.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff now that I'm questioning.
I know.
I don't know if this is good or not, but I'm seriously questioning everything right now. And I'm not sure if it's good. Like, it's crazy when you think about how much stuff can change when you thought was real.
I know,
the data
man.
you thought was real and true and accurate and all those kinds of things. Turns out maybe it's not. It's really it's earth-shattering.
Pisses you off, yeah. It's like, what can I look to? And what does it come down to is total sales anyways, right?
Yeah.
What is the business saying? You're moving that needle. If you're not, then it's not working.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you find?
Groundbreaking research, proves we've been using creators wrong this whole time. So this, an article from Andrew Tyndall, the drums. And I think there's also a report that's been published just this week, maybe, or if it's not yet, on the IPA database website. So for the past decade, digital marketing, we've been chasing algorithms, trying to get short-term sales, and we've all been questioning how influencers fit. It's a big thing that we've been talking about for a long time. And wondered what the shift to digital channels meant for brand building. So what we have now is proof that the creator economy, and specifically calling them creators, not influencers, is Andrew's point. So this is digital's first real brand building channel.
Right.
So the IPA Effectiveness Conference dropped the biggest digital marketing finding in years based on a massive economic econometric, I always have a hard time with that word,
Econometric,
analysis of over $133 million in creator spend in 28 markets in 36 categories and 144 brands. So what they found is that the creators essentially are brand builders, not salesmen or salespeople.
Okay.
We treat them often like they're salespeople, like show me what they're almost like attribution or affiliate channels, but that's not quite how they work. So they're better thought of as media channels. And in the short term, their numbers are actually pretty good. They offer similar returns to TV in the first 13 weeks of a campaign, which is better than general paid social media. So this is based on, again, the MMM modeling that they did.
Okay.
But the real big benefits come when you look at the long-term results. They deliver the highest total ROI over 2 years and the largest long-term media multiplier. So we've been measuring creators wrong this whole time, in that we're trying to treat them as short-term salespeople instead of brand builders. If you remember, there's that campaign with Snoop and Solo Stove from way back when. It's a pretty good example. I think it was maybe 2023, around November, December. So they did this great campaign with Snoop, where he went smokeless. He was going to quit smoking and all that kind of stuff. And then it was like a surprise and delight. And he came out and said, no, I decided to start up again. But it was all about the smokeless stoves from Solo. So the CEO, though, was fired shortly after that campaign because the sales didn't move immediately after that campaign. But then they did show tremendous growth, incremental growth in the 6+ months later. So it's a pretty good example. So this doesn't mean canceling TV. It doesn't mean canceling other things, but it does give us some ideas around where to use creators. And so the idea here is just to stop briefing them to, like, say, sell this, promote this. They're not influencers who study marketing. They're creators who know how to connect with an audience. And so thinking about them more in the terms of like a creative strategy, where they're doing branded content that's emotionally resonant is really important. And so, treating them like any other serious media channel, like TV advertising. In short, just using them as a brand building channel, giving them a freedom of a tight brief in order to get results is a really important kind of factor here.
You know what? I'm not surprised by this. I think just like anything, putting something in there in front of a creator, the longer you can work with them, the longer, well, I would argue you're building even more mental availability across their audiences. And it over time will even come through even more authentic, right? Because the creator becomes finds more natural ways to bring the brand in, and playing that long game. And you have to sell that internally as well, which is also difficult. Okay, where we would have originally had a fourth story, we've decided to kind of pull one back because we want to give enough space for our marketing moment, where we welcome back Dr. Nicole Hartnett to the podcast to discuss a very important report on their side. So it's assessing brand strength, comparing marketer judgment and consumer data for brand identity elements. And with the power of editing, we're going to bring Nicole in right now.
All right, V. And so for the marketing moment, we have a very special guest joining us. It's Nicole Hartnett, Senior Marketing Scientist from the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute. Nicole, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me, Marc Vassilis.
Yeah. V and I have been excited and so giddy over here waiting for this moment to try to have this conversation with you. In part because the research that you've published recently is awesome. It's super interesting. It's assessing brand strength and comparing the marketer judgment versus consumer data. Shocker, we don't always get it right. But we're really excited to have you here to chat about just the research. So maybe just to kick us off, can you give a little bit of context for why you did this?
Sure. If I'm being honest, it was predominantly curiosity, right? Previously I had done research into looking at managerial judgment or intuitive judgment around picking more sales effective ads. And so this is an extension of that line of research, wondering, well, how well can marketers judge or estimate how strong their distinctive assets are among consumers in consumer memory. Because marketers are responsible for building brands, and as part of that, building brand identities, and they have to make lots of decisions around which assets to promote, which to retire, and we do see a lot of change to brand identities, and report it from other sources reporting that a lot of that is done without consumer data. So there's an implication there that we're assuming that we're able to fulfill, we can assess how strong and valuable our asset is to decide to make changes to it. And so it was just a question is marketers are trying to affect consumer memory with these assets. Is their own knowledge or judgment a good substitute for that to make those decisions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, I wanted to start by saying your episode on the laws of marketing is still our highest ranked episode. So,
oh, no way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still number one.
You're famous.
You're super famous in our ecosystem.
Oh, well, thank you for that. That's very comforting.
Anyways, okay. Can you explain a little bit more about DBAs and the grid, perhaps?
Sure. So, distinctive brand assets are basically branding without the brand name. So anything that predominantly sensorial devices. So logos, taglines, colors, characters, sounds, so auditory as well. So visual, auditory. You can include the other senses, but they're harder to scale, so they're not often measured or included. Perhaps that will change, but for now, things that can go in video ads or static are more commonly discussed. But basically, what these assets are doing is as you build them, they're giving you tools to improve brand recognition, because it's identification,
right?
And that way you can extend beyond the brand name for how you show up across your different activities. And we use two measures. We developed, my colleague Jenny Romanek and the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute, we developed two measures to assess distinctive asset strength, which are fame, so how many people can recall your brand when they see or hear your asset, and then how often do competitor brands get recalled as well as a measure of uniqueness. So we have fame and uniqueness. And the intersection of these two measures is plotted on the distinctive asset grid. And that's just a way of assessing the value of an asset. The ideal point is that your asset only evokes your brand for everyone who could potentially buy you. So high fame, high uniqueness, but you can have assets that have low fame and high uniqueness that have investment potential. So they evoke you primarily, but not a lot of people know about it. And then you have the other end of low uniqueness, where, as you're starting out, every asset will start out with low uniqueness, low fame. And in some cases you get low uniqueness, very rarely, but you can get cases where you've got low uniqueness and high fame, where brands are genuinely converging on similar design elements. And so there's lots of confusion or mental competition. And those are risky. We would not call them assets. We would call them liabilities.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what the distinctive assets in the grid is all about. Is do you have tools in your branding toolkit that can do a job of making your brand easier to recognize in any marketing activity that you're doing?
It's interesting, and thanks for the description of that. And we've got a static image up of the grid and the results, the key results for some of the for the report you did. But just to put a little color on that, color is a funny term. Color would be one of those things that might actually be a distinctive asset that has low uniqueness, but potentially high fame, like Coca-Cola Red, let's say. Because there's a lot of other brands that use red. Whereas maybe the Geico Gecko would be an example of like it's a character that's unique to Geico and really is at the other end of the spectrum, maybe of high fame, but also high uniqueness.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
No, absolutely. You know, and you'll see in the consumer scores though that there aren't any assets falling in there. That's partly a selection effect because we can only test because we conduct this measurement with consumers and we can only test so many assets. And so those that are more generic category cues or things like that, we don't often test. And so there's not a lot of opportunity for assets sitting in a void. Equally, if lots of, you know, it's kind of natural to go, okay, other brands use red, but do they use it really predominantly? Color is an asset that requires genuine commitment to color washing everything you do. And so therefore you need multiple brands that are in effect going after red and telling consumers red means us. And so, you know, it's for lots of consumers, they don't see a lot of the activities that we do from us or from our competitors. So there's kind of an assumption that there's this really high reach and effectiveness in linking to that color. And so that's part of, you know, I'm kind of cutting my lunch here in terms of the results that we're seeing is that we're assuming a lot of effective memory building when a lot of consumers go, I don't know who that represents really.
Right.
You know, because we know consumers don't think about it a great deal.
So what are some of the big results that you found that really stood out as a part of this?
Well, we found we used a few different accuracy thresholds. So, you know, we looked at whether drawing a direct line between the marketer's judgment and the consumer score, we went, is that within 5% of the consumer score? Is that within 10% of the consumer score? Is that in the same quadrant of the distinctive asset grid? And we found that the majority, in all cases, the majority of judgments did not meet those accuracy thresholds. So only 2% of judgments were within 5% of the consumer score. Only about 10% were within 10% of the consumer score. And about just under half were in the same quadrant. And in terms of diagnosing what was happening, what we were seeing was that marketers were consistently overestimating fame and underestimating uniqueness. So when you look at the image that you have, you can see that a lot of assets with investment potential, well, they were misjudged as use or lose, so higher fame, or they were misjudged as ignore or test, so lower uniqueness. When really for consumers, the most common performance was investment potential, which is really interesting. And we explain this with the false consensus effect, where what marketers are doing is projecting their much more established knowledge onto the consumer. So they know all of the activities and they believe that those activities are reaching and affecting consumers. And so that leads to a higher fame assessment. But then they're also more likely to see overlaps or generic design elements where they feel that compromises uniqueness and are expecting consumers to make those same assessments or to be able to recall multiple brands. And really, you know, for a lot of consumers, they're not as attuned or aware of the full breadth of marketing activities related to those categories that are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it's fascinating to me that like we see this all the time. We've joked about it. We might have even joked about it with you, but so often you have new marketers come into an organization. You go, well, we need to do something. I'm going to refresh the brand. We were talking Professor Sharp, and he had said, that there's a case study where they were trying to modernize the brand, and then they evaluated it afterwards, and the modern version was actually considered to be less modern than the old version. And you see this kind of thing happening all the time, but like having this data representing the actual misjudgment, I think is fascinating. But you almost never hear of people measuring the brand assets before they change them, and I'm just amazed by that.
Yeah, to give credit where credit is due to these marketers or these brands, they were doing the measurement, which gave us the ability to compare their judgment to the consumer data. So good on.
No, for sure.
But yes, I also hear that. Well, I assume lots of brands aren't doing this measurement, and I guess what this is saying is be evidence-based. You are trying to, it's in the eye of the beholder. You're trying to affect consumer memory, and so you need to measure consumer memory for an accurate judgment. We did look at some conditions and admittedly not all brands can do this. Small brands sometimes can't. Equally, if you're a small brand, the idea that you will have a very strong asset across the entire category buyer base is less likely. So if you take a rule of thumb from this, if you think your asset is so famous, just downgrade that, and if you think so unique, upgrade that. But we did find, the stronger assets in the top right-hand quadrant, they were more accurately judged because that's when marketers' knowledge resembles consumer knowledge better. Naturally, that's more accurate. We also looked at making estimates in group settings versus individual marketers making assessments or predictions, and found that group settings were more accurate. So perhaps in that circumstance, getting some peers together and discussing it and having a diversity of estimates in the room is not a bad thing. But in terms of, if you are thinking of making changes, that's always a good opportunity for doing this measurement. To know, is it warranted, or are you abandoning something with value that you've already committed resources to, and then you're effectively starting again.
I love this, and I don't know, maybe we won't have much more time here, but I love this because I think it also does two things. It factors in a proper, almost like self-assessment and understanding what do you actually have in your arsenal that you can use that, either consumers have already resonated with over the years, but where there is some opportunity to refresh or do something instead of just throwing out the old playbook, coming in with a new one and saying, okay, here, let's go after it. My final question here is, how should marketers think about this from a day-to-day perspective, and how often should they be looking to adopt this 2x2 grid where they're going through their distinctive brand assets and assessing them?
Well, a day-by-day sense is, I guess, where distinctive assets show up is primarily in communications or right. touch points. So assessing everything you do with the lens of, if we are trying to build a logo or a tagline or something else, is it there in that touch point? And is it in proximity to the brand name? Because in this process of building assets, the brand name is sort of the central, it's a central node in memory. We're trying to file things in the right drawer of the filing cabinet, and the drawer is the brand name. And so you want to put those things side by side so people learn the linkage between them, right? Because you're eventually, hopefully, being able to take the brand name away, and the asset will do that job for you. And hopefully help that cut through, because the brand name as a word can't always punch through in every situation and get noticed. So on a day-to-day, making those assessments of, well, this is the toolkit we want to build. Are we putting the tools out there appropriately? In terms of this grid, well, for many brands, they're trying to affect the memories of millions and millions of people, households, right? And so that takes time. We don't really recommend doing this measurement any more than once per year, maybe once every couple of years even, because it's a slow-moving beast. But this should be in front of you in terms of telling you, what can this asset, how valuable is this asset for me now? And therefore, if I'm using it in a certain way, what does that risk represent? So if I'm taking away the brand name, if my asset has high uniqueness and middling fame, well, 50% of, half or more of the people that see it won't make the connection to my brand. So therefore, it's at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
I can't expect it to bring the brand to mind for everyone that sees it. So I need to still put in the work to build it.
That makes sense.
This is great, Nicole. Thanks so much for jumping in and sharing this marketing moment with us. I'm excited that we get the chance to chat with you again. And this has just been awesome. What other things are you working on, and how can people find out more about you?
I'm working a fair bit in the moment in attention to advertising is another area. But in terms of how you can find me, that at Ehrenberg-Bass Institute, our website is marketingscience.info. I'm on LinkedIn.
Perfect. We'll put a few links in the show notes for you too, and including to the report as well. Thanks.
Great. So much.
Thanks, Nicole. Out of the week. We're both girl dads, right?
Yeah.
We're both girl dads. Girl dads are the best. Shout out to all the girl dads out there. This one it kind of hits home a little bit. I don't know if you've seen it.
Totally. It's awesome.
Yeah. Dove's Change the Compliment. So they've just launched their new global campaign called Change the Compliment, part of their long-running self-esteem project. And we've covered the self-esteem project on a few different points over the last 4 years. Started back in 2024. I didn't know it went back that far, though, to be completely honest with you. The idea was so simple, but it really hits hard. Most of the compliments we give young girls are about how they look. You're so pretty, so adorable. And while that seems harmless, Dove's research shows that it actually does harm, reinforcing the idea that the appearance defines worth. So this campaign is asking people to flip that script. Instead of praising how girls look, celebrate what they do. Tell them they're kind, creative, strong, curious, clever, because that's what really builds confidence. So they launched it on the International Day of the Girl, and with the work from Zula Alpha Kilo, and I think they've been their agency of record for time. Their creative agency of record for quite some time, out of New York and Toronto. It's a full-on integrated campaign, film, social, out-of-home, influencers, all anchored by a beautifully shot hero piece directed by Haya Wasim. And on social, they've created a TikTok CapCut template and for Instagram. So basically you can add your sticker as well. Cool. So you can really allow and build that momentum. And what I love about this, it's not performative. It's not anthemic. It's not like these big flashy spots. It's educational. It's reflective. And Dove isn't lecturing people. It's holding up a mirror and asking, hey, what messages are we unintentionally passing on?
Yeah.
An interesting quote. So Marcella Malero from Dove said something that really stuck out with me. Low confidence in appearance doesn't begin in childhood. It takes root in childhood. I'm like, that's a little deep. And she's right. The campaign isn't about selling soap. It's about changing a reflex that starts at home, at school, at the dinner table. And it's such a small shift. But if enough people make it, the impact could be generational. So next time you want to compliment a young girl, maybe skip that "you're beautiful" and try "you're brave" instead.
It's cool. I love the campaign. It's so smart. It's really clever. And it's funny when you think about the creative, like having that campaign started in 2004.
Yeah, man.
20 years now. It's
insane.
A platform that has been something they've explored from all different kinds of angles that you would normally think, oh, it's boring. But they keep finding new ways to tell the story, which I think is really interesting and a really great testament to their commitment to building the brand and being consistent and all the things we've always talked about. Like, it's really, really good.
Absolutely.
And with that, V, that wraps up our Barber's Brief.
That's right.
Yeah. What do we got coming up next week?
Next week, you get to listen to Marc and I. We've been meaning to do this episode for quite some time. You'll hear us often talk about marketing effectiveness, the principles, etc. We're like, why don't we just do an episode on the principles? So people have them in one spot. They can go back. They could often reference them and just kind of share that knowledge that we've been able to capture over the years and just create an episode around it. So I'm really looking forward to getting that out there. I think it's going to be
fun.
Yeah.
And with that, that's
the end.
The end. And thank you for listening. Thank you for keeping us in your ears.
Of course. Stay sharp, everybody. It's Q4.
Yeah.
It's Q4.
Yeah. It's a big one.
It's a big one.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one. Bye.